think we do need to have a follow-up meeting with them. We need to discuss weight limitations.
They lose a bag, there's no FedEx truck to deliver it to SAM Ministries in the dirt road in Mozambique.
Is it realistic to go for a 16-day trip with 7 days worth of clothing?
Is it safe to drink, the well water?
Part of it is this, and disconnecting from that.
What's 18 more hours of not touching your email?
The most efficient way for our team to get our boots there is to wear them. Did a few of us take a few soccer balls? Is that something the school would love to have? I don't know if I'm going to say I'm out of the country, but I'm away and I will be unavailable without access to email or voicemails until this date.
Clean water.
Why have you ever done that before?
No.
I mean, I'm getting clammy just thinking about it.
I don't think you understand what your potential is until you develop a worldview. Your viewpoint is determined by your perspective, which is the direct result of, how often you get a chance to travel. So my thought was, let's put ourselves in a position where we give people an opportunity to develop a worldview, and at the same point in time, we give back to a community. There are a lot of communities looking for clinics and looking for clean water, and looking for schools. We know how to do that. So if we can link our expertise with the need in the community that's, guess what, out of country, we can accomplish a lot for that local community, and we can accomplish a lot for our people.
And I remember, maybe understandably, there was a little bit of pushback early on of, the communities we serve are generally domestic, they're closer to our offices. How is this relevant?
I came up with this idea and I thought, oh my God, they're going to think I'm nuts, But I started socializing it, and, I got a pretty warm response.
We were really interested in trying to find a project that either had an educational or a healthcare flair to it.
And the way you roll with it as a CEO is you find one or two really smart folks, smarter than you, to really do the work. And he went to the guy that he thought would be the best champion, and that is John Cleveland.
Chris Hallapi walks into my office and he says, John, in 2019, we took a group of people to Bolivia and did a water project there to bring clean drinking water to a community of folks in the foothills of the Andes Mountains. So we did that in 2019. And then COVID hit, and we had, that whole crazy time. And now here we are in 2021. We want to resurrect that again and do that again. And I know that missions is something you're interested in and passionate about. And I guess I'd like to ask you if you'd head that up. And I thought about it for exactly 1/2 of a second and said, I can do that, Chris.
Long story short, John did his due diligence, crushed it, found a good in-country partner, and decided, hey, we're going to have an education-based trip this time and build a couple apartments out in the bush that will enable this entity to hire 2 more teachers to expand their school to 2 more grades, right? So now we're going to be able to educate more children.
I started by talking to a couple of the folks that were on the committee for the original mission trip in 2019 to Bolivia. And when Chris Freitag, who's our vice president over our healthcare work, he said, I got an email back. We need to talk to Dr. Roger Pahoka. He's been doing mission work in Africa since the mid-90s. And some very good friends of theirs are the folks that actually run SAM Ministries, which is where we're going in Mozambique. That's what who we're going to serve on this trip.
I
Over the years, we developed a relationship with Roger and Katie Paholka. And when they encountered Shook, Roger and Katie said, we know the perfect place. And so they introduced Shook to SAM Ministries. John contacted me and we started this discussion about what they could possibly do. So Shook's interest in coming and helping us with the project was huge. And it just somehow came at a perfect time where we needed to build additional teacher accommodations at our school. And we identified exactly what the materials would need. Here we did a lot of the pre-planning that was needed so that we could best utilize the team when they landed on the ground.
I think what made all the difference in the world there is when Roger and Katie said they'd go along, we knew that we had a board-certified practicing emergency room physician that would be with us at all times, and Dr. Roger Paholka. And his wife Katie is a registered nurse. We wanted to make sure that everybody was ready from a medical standpoint to get on that plane and go on this trip. And so we set up a remote clinic downstairs in one of our conference rooms. It was Dr. Rogers' office for a day.
We've been serving as medical missionaries in South Africa since 1985. We have been taking teams of medical practitioners, of construction volunteers, educators, over to Southern Africa to work and utilize our skills on a voluntary basis.
So he had a private consultation with everybody and discussed that, and then he's also calling in prescriptions for anti-malarial medication. Malaria is a huge problem in that part of the world, particularly Mozambique.
If anybody gets sick, we can do a pretty good job diagnostically as well as therapeutically taking care of them. If anybody gets injured, we'll be there with them and make sure they get proper care.
The main objective of this trip to Mozambique is to build a teacher's apartment. It's a masonry building for 2 bedrooms for 2 teachers to live in at the school that SAM Ministries runs. And we have some folks going on the trip with masonry experience, but we also have a lot of people like me that's behind a desk most of the day and just haven't done that. So we felt it was important to get those folks, everybody on the team really, some training on the basics of masonry construction. And we have one bay that's going to be cleaned out, start building block walls in there one day. We're going to have a training session. So we have one person going with us who has a very strong background in masonry construction. Lance Harris, he's a senior superintendent for our company.
My dad and my grandpa were union mason contractors. So from as long as I can remember, I grew up going to job sites. None of us are bricklayers by trade. So we're just trying to better prepare ourselves so we know what we're going to be getting into when we go over there and build this project. The intent of the training here, I think, is just to get us familiar with the consistency that the mortar wants to be, learning that you got to slap the trowel to get the mortar to stick to it so you can turn it upside down and it doesn't fall off. Wrist motion is pretty important because you don't want to set the block all cockeyed or it's going to screw your mortar bed all up. So you want to try to bring it down as level as possible, be over top of the work so you can look down on the backside, sight down with the rest of the wall that you already have laid up. Again, the consistency is like peanut butter. If it's too sloppy, it won't hold your block up. You're looking for something that's halfway thick enough to, when you set your next course of block, that it's going to still support it.
Boy, this got pretty real pretty quick. I'm a little anxious.
And ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to welcome you to Newark's Liberty Airport. Local time here is Mozambican people, workers and peasants, workers on the plantations, in the timber mills and in the concessions, workers in the mines, on the railways, in the harbors and in the factories, intellectuals, civil servants, Mozambican soldiers in the Portuguese army, students, men, women and young people, patriots, in the name of all of you, Frelimo today, on the 25th of September 1964, solemnly proclaims the general armed insurrection of the Mozambican people against Portuguese colonialism for the attainment of the complete independence of Mozambique.
Mozambique as a history was a Portuguese colony for over 400 years. Mozambique then in the early 60s went through an independence war to get rid of the Portuguese colonialists, as did many of the countries in Africa, specifically sub-Saharan Africa. And so that was supported very much by the USSR in their bid to extend Marxism and socialism into sub-Saharan Africa, which culminated in '75 when the Portuguese were expelled. Right on the heels of that, a Marxist government was installed by the leader, at that time, Samora Machel, proclaimed God is dead, put a lot of the priests and or Protestant pastors, religious leaders in jail. They wanted to see a African independent leadership, not controlled by another colonial power of sorts. So they immediately went into the bush and started fighting for a civil war for independence from any foreign influence. And the battle turned ugly, of course, which resulted in schools, clinics, you name it, being destroyed in the country. And so right about the time that we came into the country, or just prior to us coming into the country, Mozambique signed a peace accord in 1992. And that peace accord allowed for then elections to happen in 1995, which resulted in what you would call a tenuous democracy that we currently have here in Mozambique. SAM Ministries stands for Strategic Action Mission, and so Strategic Action Mission simply reflects our mission statement, which is to love God and love people, so they have a chance to love God and love people. And we say that the most strategic act on the planet, Earth, was an act of unconditional love. And that's what Christ did for us. Our commitment was to get into Mozambique and to establish a base of operations in the country that will enable us to address the broad range of human need that existed in this country. And so we came to a country that was totally devastated and needed a base of operations to focus on holistic ministry, in other words, trying to address the needs of the whole man, both spiritual, physical, economic, educational, social. So we wanted to be based in a place where we could demonstrate some of the practical skills that are needed to be developed by the people, to see their lives develop and grow, and also so that they could identify with us in a better way. And so our goal was to set up a rural base of operations, and in this case a farm, where we could demonstrate some of the agricultural techniques that we were hoping to transmit, as well as address all the broader needs of, like I say, the people here. Initially, we set up a farm where we had a commercial component to it, and the idea was for the commercial farm to support the mission so that we could be self-sustaining in the country, less reliant on donor funds, because we really wanted to see the development of an entity that would be able to sustain itself in the long term, not only reliant on outside resources.
hot water, you gotta light the donkey. You gotta light a fire under the donkey. I think we all went for at least 3 days going, okay, this thing's called a donkey. I don't know why, but we gotta light it if we want hot water. So we light it and we get hot water 30 minutes later. Well, the donkey is an old 30-pound cylinder bottle that they've piped in and out. So the solar pump from the well pumps water into this tank. Obviously, they gotta exit on the other side. And then came the story. I gotta know why you call it the donkey. Apparently, if you build too big of a fire, it gets so hot that the warm water leads down the lines, and it gets so hot that you start melting copper sweated lines, and then the steam that it starts blowing out sounds like a screaming donkey.
We land at the airstrip and put the plane away in a nice hangar and get in a decent truck and drive to some living accommodations that, like, well, this isn't so bad. And then we get in that nice truck again and we leave the gate. And that's kind of when it hits you, seeing the bancas and seeing the mud huts, and then driving through the village and the truck being barely able to pass on the road. It winds with no particular direction you seem to be going. And then all of a sudden you open up into a bit of a clearing, and there's a church built out of mud.
Well, we were immediately thrown into the local culture in a pretty big way with the first church service. Being an individual that grew up in church, westernized churches, that was such a cultural shock in every sense of the word. The passion of all the church patrons, it was certainly like nothing I've ever experienced in a Western world church.
You know, one thing I really felt in there, inside that church, as they're singing and they're dancing, is the entire playing field was leveled in terms of, you know, we're all just people on this planet. You know, we come from a different place than they do. We have different traditions and customs than they do. We have a lot more material things than they do, but it, you know, that you throw all that out the window when you walk into that church that's made of mud and a thatched roof, and we're all there, you know, under God, together.
I want to thank God this morning for bringing us together in this house. That's very good. It's God's grace that brought us here. Amen. I was not expecting for us to be here today, but because God planned that, He made us all to come together in this place.
Okay, so we just got out of church and we're pulled up to the accommodation unit there, the Hornbill, only to find out that the other plane is arriving with John and Dr. Roger and Katie Paholka. So they were delayed due to a magneto failure on the aircraft yesterday.
I didn't expect the greeting at the airport. That was phenomenal. To be pulling up to the hangar in that small aircraft and look out and see the rest of my team, it was like we were reunited finally together. All is well with the world type feeling. It was great. And to meet Dwight and Lynn right there in that moment it was phenomenal. I'd worked with them for, I mean, the better part of a year, right? To actually get to reach out and touch them and shake a hand and, you know, give a hug was wonderful.
I know this guy. Oh, it's so good to be here and meet you as well. Absolutely.
We didn't bring the band.
Welcome.
Next Sunday, dude. Next Sunday.
Yeah. Because our school is located in a very rural setting here in Mozambique, it's about 15 kilometers off a major highway, which is in a very remote setting. And obviously, there are no places for teachers to live there. And it's hard enough, even with accommodations, to attract good quality teachers because they're far away from the town, they're far away from food supplies, you name it, you know. So we've tried to do the best we can with the resources we have to provide a setting in which they can thrive and provide a solid education to our kids. People coming from the developed world into our context simply cannot appreciate how difficult it is to get something done, and specifically to try to get something done on time. And so managing expectations was something we tried hard to do up front. However, there was still that uneasiness about how the team was going to be able to land, hit the ground, how they were going to survive in our context. I mean, it's not too terrible, but it is different. And then be productive on the ground, knowing what their skill set was and how well they were going to be able to actually do the building that was needed was an uncertain thing.
You know, there's always that fear. We're going to get over there, and promises that had been made about materials being procured and being ready for us to hit the ground running aren't going to come true. That was not our reality at all. Everything that Dwight and Lynn said they were going to do, they did.
The team that hit the ground were an amazing combination of people who aren't all construction people. Many of them were office people, administrators, project managers, and here they were thrown into a situation where they had to come together with a very difficult, unknown situation and try to productively achieve the objective.
I've always prided myself on being a pretty handy fellow. What I found is that didn't translate very well at all. The level of detail work with the masonry structure, I didn't take to it quite naturally, as you can imagine. Another thing that really escalated my personal angst and anxiety level was Dwight Lagore, who runs that entire operation, made it a point at least 20 times to say across several folks, regardless of who was in the room, you know, that everything's going to be okay because the professionals are in the room. Well, that creates a lot of anxiety because the last thing that I am known for would be a professional mason.
Yeah, on Sunday afternoon we got to go visit the construction site and get our eyes on the site, see what we'd be working on for the coming week. And my initial reaction was, holy cow, this is a long way away from nowhere. Like I knew it wasn't right at the mission. I thought once we turned on that dirt road, you know, it'd be 5 minutes down the road. I mean, it was like 20 minutes down that dirt road. And when I say road, that's generous. It's a path through nothingness is what it is that they call a road.
And here are our teachers, at least some of them.
Many of the teachers live in a mud hut, sometimes in very, very poor conditions, and obviously that contributes very negatively to their performance and to their longevity in the situation.
The thing I remember most about that day is Dwight giving us the tour and saying, you know, you guys are the builders. We'll do it however you like. And we kept trying to reiterate, now we're just management. We're not really builders. And I think he thought we were joking. But I think maybe the next day when we started building, he quickly understood. Yeah, they were telling me the truth. That, but still able to accomplish some pretty amazing things despite the fact that we maybe spend a lot of time on the carpet as opposed to out in the dirt.
Yeah, in fact, there's your sample.
Okay.
This is what you need to build. So, what that looks like, this will look like. Only hopefully this will even be better because good Americans came to build it.
So what about the mortar?
Well, we will. Our plan is to have a team that can be mixing mortar constantly and supplying it. So that if that sounds like something that makes sense to you guys, then that's what we'll do.
So along those lines, how many of you guys are going to have a couple people that would be able to lend a hand?
Oh yeah, we have a team of our guys we want to work with you guys, mainly to make sure that they can have a chance to interact with you guys, but also make sure you guys don't mess up, you know.
Right. That's what we need.
Right now, our main focus, as we talked over with John, is to get that done. And as far as we can get on this, is a secondary.
So you don't want to try doing them at the same time?
Well, we thought, listen, if we can get going on there, we were just discussing it. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, right. Yeah, if we can get going on there and get up scaffold high, it'll slow down a little bit. I would think as we get high, we might have some people move them over here, start laying here, and then we can move some scaffold over here. But yeah, with all that said, I mean, the intent is we'll know pretty quick, I think, how we're going to move over there.
Right.
Wouldn't you say?
6 a.m. Is our start time in the morning, so we'll be trying to launch from here at 6. Our support staff only arrive at 7. There is going to be food at the school. Again, if you'd like to try that out and that works for you, that's fine. Otherwise, maybe prep yourself a sandwich. You may get to drink some water. Actually, I think they're going to make you drink water, whether you want water or not.
Yeah, well, do we need to bring water from here?
Yeah, I think everyone, if you can, everyone can take personal responsibility. There's lots of water in each of your places. Throw a bottle in the fridge for yourself. You are in a different context here than you are in North America, and so there are a few things you need to be aware of. And the one likely most dangerous thing you will encounter here in the bush is something you won't see, and that is a little Anopheles mosquito. Isn't that right, Dr. Roger? In fact, the stat at one point in time was that 2 jumbo jets of kids die almost every day from malaria in sub-Saharan Africa. So it's a horrific statistic. Many do, and it's not to be taken lightly. So that's why we said any symptoms you have can be a presentation of malaria, not likely in the first week, 7 days likely after your time first getting here. And we have had people get malaria on every kind of precaution there is. So you'll be briefed on that. The second thing is just when you're walking around, just take a light. Make sure you walk on paths or roads that are used normally, preferably. I mean, if you're going across the lawn, it's not a big deal, but off in the bush is not a great idea. We do have snakes, and we do have some fairly poisonous ones. Most of the time they'll run away from you, but sometimes they won't. And in Marta's case, who you saw this morning at church, who has one leg, she was actually walking through the property and she stepped on a puff adder in the evening, just up by the airstrip, and that's why, well, it's part of the reason why she lost her leg. Just be alert, and if you're aware, you don't need to be worried. As Andy likes to say, don't swim in the dam down here. We have a 2.5 meter crocodile that lives in that dam. They are Nile crocs all along this river, and we've had quite a few people lose their lives to them over the years, and if not lose their lives, get damaged by them, so they come out of the water very fast. So if you are, and it's very nice, it's really nice to go and sit down, but if you sit up on the rock where you can just hear the water, if you want a quiet moment, it's better than getting too close to the water. Besides that, if you're near the rivers, either by the school or here, there is bilharzia in the water, so if you do get wet, dry yourself off as quick as possible after you get out of the water. It's caused by a snail, gets through the skin,
can kind of mess things up. Dr. Roger can explain more.
Wake up around 5 o'clock or something like that and get ready to head out, if memory serves right, around 6 or thereabouts. We passed some kids on the road, which is kind of neat, seeing the people along the side of the road, the kids walking to school, and down that dirt path. I said, well, now I know how the kids get here. They walked down this dirt path in droves. And so got to the school and excited to get started with our mission of building this dormitory.
Sentido, atenção e não pátria amada. Na memória de África do mundo, pata pela discussão e a lutar. Moçambique teu nome é liberdade, o seu destino para sempre brilhar. Moçambique, nossa terra gloriosa, pedra, pedra, costume, não pode. Minha depressão, uma asa força, ó Bateu, vamos vencer. Moçambique, nossa terra curiosa, pedra, pedra, costume, não pode. Minha depressão, uma asa força, ó Bateu, vamos vencer. Uma alma pura, sonho fruto deste combate pela paz. Esse sonho é murado na bandeira, que estará dando na certeza da manhã. Moçambique, nossa terra curiosa.
They already had the slab poured, they already had 2 courses of block laid, door frames were established, and they had got rain over the weekend, I believe. So when we came to the site that Sunday afternoon, the first thing we noticed was water standing in the back left corner of each of the 2 rooms, and that tells me that, the slab wasn't level. The next day when we were on site on Monday, we started putting a level on things, and we realized, it's not just a little bit out, but it was 2 inches out of level. So do you want us to try to bring it up, or do you want us to just lay it?
You do what you feel like you should do. Yeah, obviously it would be better if we could get it square. I'm surprised it isn't.
Yeah, let's build it right and bring it up. Okay. Yeah. We can't put the building up out of whack or out of level, out of plumb. We have to make it right. So we did have a little bit of a hiccup that we were given right off the bat, but we were able to, figure out how to overcome it. Construction, the material itself was a little bit different in that here we call a supplier and they bring concrete block to the job site. There, they take sand and cement and they cast their own concrete block in their own molds. And it's a dry pack mix. We noticed that the quality of the material wasn't what we're used to. It was definitely a lower quality because sometimes you'd go to grab a block in each hand and go carry it over to the scaffolding, and when you'd give it that oomph to get it up on the scaffolding, it would just disintegrate in your hands. Here in the US, we would throw that away and go get another one. There, they use everything. The little parts and pieces, they use all those little crumbs.
Partners, the local workforce that worked alongside of us that were part of SAM Ministries, kind of jumped in, and the language barrier was difficult to manage. We really couldn't communicate at all verbally. It just wasn't happening.
Nathan, right? Nathan. Natanya. Nathan. Nathan. Natanya.
And that's kind of how we started on Monday. There was a lot of pointing and, hey Dwight, or hey Jeanette, help translate for us.
They jumped in, started mixing mortar, and moving block, staging block for us, and we got to laying block, and by noon it was like, wow, we're making great progress today. I can't believe how much block is laid up already. And it was really cool. I'd say by the end of that first day, there was kind of a rhythm starting to, materialize between the local workforce and those of us from Shook.
Expressões de quantidade. Dentro de expressões de quantidade, nós vamos encontrar muito e pouco. Estamos em noção de quantidade. Aqui temos muito e aqui temos 2, 3, 4, 5. Muito pouco, muito pouco, muito pouco, muito pouco, muito.
It's not about the building, it's about the person that's living there that's going to impact the children and do a good job for the children, training them well, teaching them well, impacting them well, so that they can have better future. So by building the schools and houses for the teachers, we are building people's life as well. So if we don't have those construction, it will be very difficult for those people that are having those kids to build those kids' life. So the more we are building, the better homes we are building for those teachers, and the more lives we are building, and in the better way. This is the need that we have here in Mozambique, and our teachers need suitable place that they can stay and have time to reflect, to think, and plan for their lessons, and have time to study. So they need that so that they can have good impact in the kids.
As patas, estamos juntos? As patas, as cascos, também nós podemos encontrar nos membros da vaga. Estamos juntos, né? Sim. E por fim, vamos falar o número 4. Cadê? Vamos pôr na mascada.
So going into the trip, I wanted to build the dormitory, of course. That was a big objective. It was the reason we're going. But I'm not gonna lie, selfishly, spending time with those kids was really what I wanted to do. I wanted to go to this school and I wanted to see these children, and wandered over to the fence because the dormitory we were building was sort of just outside the fence of the schoolyard. I'm just watching them. Dwight walked by me and he said, "Hey, it's okay to go, go interact with the kids." So he didn't have to tell me that twice. I was going through that gate and went in there and started high-fiving and low-fiving the kids and fist bumps. And when I got the camera out, that's when the crowds flocked. I got my smartphone out, took a picture of a couple of kids and showed it to them, and they came out of the woodwork in droves. They loved that. And walked on that fence, and I turned back around. I remember vividly just looking back at those kids and thought, this is why I came.
Here, communities and people, they have to have relationship in order to survive because they need each other. So they value relationship. They value you taking the time. That matters to them. They make the most of just those interactions, you see it when you go to the school.
Are those plantains or bananas? Hot.
They're bananas, I think.
It's kind of.
They smell sweet.
Jeanette.
Yeah.
So I missed your demo.
You just kind of you're gonna get
Take and dip.
messy, and then I usually work it a little bit
Okay.
with my hands so that I can,
Okay.
and then kind of scoop.
Scoop it.
Use my thumb.
Like making flatbread.
Yeah,
It's called sudza here. Sudza is maize
How you doing, John?
ground up and
Awesome.
yeah,
Good.
that's it.
I think it's great.
Ground up and cooked. And so it's like a thick porridge. And we serve it with beans, tomato, and onion, along with a little bit of a pepper sauce. Yeah.
The rest of the kids have eaten already?
No.
Is your belly full? Your belly full? You eat already?
That's not a headdress.
This is everything I hoped it would be. Like this is what I wanted to do.
You got more, huh?
Like the building is great, we'll get it done. But this is what I wanted. Can't ask for more than this. Man.
It was hard to judge how much suds on with the beans. You know how far they go together.
Smiles on the kids' faces. They're happy. They're so happy. And you look around and it's like, what in the world, right? Why all the smiles? And it's just phenomenal to see all the smiles and see how happy they are, given the utter poverty that we're surrounded by, and that gives me great hope. You don't have to have a bunch of stuff to be happy.
The impact it has for people from the outside to come is tremendous. I mean, we can't even imagine how much impact it has in their lives. From all these children, seeing that there is like a huge team coming of 14 people or 12 people. They give everything, they don't just sit in the shade, they are like in the sun, sweating, they have a red head. I mean, suffering really, drinking water all the time, and they don't sit around. To see that's a huge impact. We think maybe, these little kids, he will probably forget that in a week, or in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, but that's not true. This is this is really in their heart. They will never, never, ever forget that. And the impact that has in their lives is tremendous.
Matt, we can jump up here, and it sounds like what we'll do is lay up as much as we can here, and then we'll move that board onto here, do the same thing.
This is nothing. I'm saying, of course it's something, but you know what I mean. It's really important is the people who are here, who are sharing their life. And this is what I always take for myself as well. It's not what I'm doing here. It's that I'm here. So that I share my life with them. And this is all what I want to do. Whatever I do, I want to share just my time with them every day. And that connects you, We'll never forget that time we had. Yeah, it was hard work, but we achieved something.
So everything is the same height on the perimeter walls right now?
Right, exactly. I think just our middle wall here.
Leave that side and pop it up.
Working on setting up a scaffold here in the center. Get that wall done, slide it over, get the side wall.
Same as yesterday, you guys make sure we drink plenty of water. I felt like I was going to die 7 times, I think, yesterday. So
take your breaks.
Take your breaks, take them in the shade. Enjoy the little bit of a breeze. Still supposed to be the same temperature today.
Okay, far enough.
Well, we should be raising these hopping boards up to probably right here.
malipasawo nomukana Jehova masimba ose apafatia chikavu chechema kwabika ona chikavu chechikavu mwana pafatia singapeli amen.
I personally went over there with the goal of trying to play some soccer in Mozambique. And fortunately, I was given that opportunity, and man, that was so much fun. I felt like that was also kind of a leveling situation where we all know how to play the game, and we're just playing. You know, we come from different places, but we're just playing this game, simple game that we all love to play, and that was just really really rewarding for me.
I deal with the more difficult cases, such as Marta. She is a prime example of the kind of thing that we face. So Marta is a 10-year-old girl. She was very sick. She had a high fever. She was just laying on her grass mat by the fire, trying to keep warm. Hadn't eaten in days. She had already been sick for about a month, and her leg was just swollen and hot. She had a bone infection. And typically and traditionally, when a family member is ill, they will go back to their traditional home because they'll need to consult their ancestors, because that's the traditional religion. They believe in the spirits of the ancestors, so their grandparents, great-grandparents, and so on and so forth, who have gone on before, who are now in the afterlife, but are still very much present and involved in their day-to-day lives and determine either their success or their failures. And so long as they recognize our ancestors and do certain ceremonies and appease them and follow a certain set of rules, things will go well. If they don't, then things don't go well. And so when things don't go well, if it's illness or accidents or whatever, then they know that they need to go back to those ancestors and find out, because they don't always understand what exactly they did wrong. So then they find a traditional healer. Now that's what we would years ago always called a witch doctor. You can also call them a traditional healer. So you consult these people, present your problem. The witch doctor will then, do her or his ceremony, beat the drums to call the spirits of the ancestors to come and basically enter into them and speak through her or him to the family. Quite often the solutions bring a lot of conflict because a lot of blame is placed. We see a lot of people who have been to the witch doctor several times, and things have just deteriorated and got worse and worse and worse.
When did all this happen?
Quando começou essa coisa aí?
Começou há muito tempo.
3.
Yeah.
So good 3 years.
Can we just look? Okay. Have they been putting anything on this?
É tradicional, né?
Traditional medicine.
Okay.
No curandeiro.
Okay.
Nos curandeiros.
So they went to witch doctors and were given their,
Yeah.
blocking you, but
No.
Whatever they
so yeah, whatever their.
See back there, it looks, that's
Yeah.
either just shiny or drainage.
Yeah. Well,
I
it's
can't tell.
actually both. About over here. Does that hurt?
Aí em cima.
We just saw Fernando. He's a 6-year-old boy who lives in the Mucombeze region of Mozambique, very rural, very remote area with limited healthcare facilities. Over the course of the 3 years, he has developed a skin condition called keloid formation, which we see in the US, we see in North America all the time, but not to this degree. And then in an effort to remove the keloid, it would appear that the traditional healers have been incising it and putting medications into it and on it and around it, which in turn has caused a number of secondary infections or abscesses or boils to form. So there is a cure, there is a treatment for this. It involves surgical excision and then a lot of post-operative care, which can be provided at the hospital here, perhaps in a hospital in Malawi. But he's going to be fine.
The immersion day got really interesting in the afternoon when we headed to the hospital. You have North American hospitals, which are, sometimes towers, or at least, medical facilities that are, spacious and new and high technology. And this was, the layout of this place, everything's outside. And the only reason you go inside is to go into your room. So everyone waits outside. All the waiting rooms are outside. So all the people waiting to be seen or treated or waiting on others are all just congregated outside around the grounds of the hospital. There's dogs running around, cats running around. And, what was very cool is we did a follow-up visit with the malnourished child, Amelia, who the day earlier at the school, they brought her to the clinic at the school, and Dr. Roger and Lynn, and they all saw her there and said, you got to get her to the hospital immediately. And so the day we went, we followed up with her at the hospital, and she was doing better. They were extremely worried that she may not survive. But, both her parents were there, and just to see that experience and that interaction, their concern for her, and, the baby's just tired, drowsy. You could see her just kind of hanging on, but she was fighting.
Yeah, that's what they're going to do. They've decided to mix it there and just bring it in the wheelbarrows. Yeah, yeah.
That's the long way. Are we...
The biggest part of the construction that influenced me was just a collaboration between us and the locals, and the skills that they had. So we were quite proficient at laying block. Yeah, we were quite proficient at putting the metal roof on, and the wood trusses and whatnot on the porch, and all that stuff. We were proficient at all of that. We could not put that cementitious parge coating on the wall to save our lives.
Yeah, when they would grab the trowel mortar and they would throw it on the wall, and some of those guys had it down pat where they could do it blindfolded. It was a sight to see. I mean, they were truly craftsmen at what they did.
And those guys were artists. That one guy, I don't remember his name, but he looked like he was doing a dance. He dipped the trowel in the wheelbarrow for the mortar, fling it on the wall, and it'd have that perfect trowel shape, hit the wall and stick.
There we go.
I bet you get that mistake. Oh, there you go. You going to the corner?
So just watch Patrick first.
Yeah, just watch him first. Yeah, there you go. And then you just do what he does. It's easy. It's really easy. Just do what he does.
I mean, we tried and we tried some more, but it just wasn't clicking for most of us. There were times during that parging process where we would be working on a wall, and we thought we were doing fairly good getting the mortar to stick to it, and then they would come in, as soon as we turned around, they'd come in with a shovel and scrape it off.
So I was doing it, and after a little while, my mud started sticking to the wall, and I started to get a little cocky and thought, okay, well, all I needed was, 10 minutes worth of practice. And the very next fling of mud on the wall, it's an entire section that I had that had stuck. The mud hit the wall, and then that whole section peeled off and fell down on the ground. And I think I threw my hands up in the air and I said, I quit.
The people say we are not perfect. We can't do everything, We fail as well, and this is actually so important because they think we can do everything. We have everything, we have the money, we do everything. There's no limit. In their view, there's no limit for us. But to see that we actually fail, that helps them a lot because then they say, oh, these are just human, we are just human. Rachel, she's the only lady in that team. We have no idea how that impact has on the girls, and he's doing such a hard job, with cement and blocks and putting the roof up and with all the woodwork. This is huge.
I'm a part of the team. I'm another Shook employee from America who came here to build a building. I try to not let that thought that I'm a different gender get into my head or cross my mind because we are all one singular team. But I won't let that stop me from being very excited and honored to have the responsibility of representing females from America to the students that we met in Mozambique. It was really powerful.
And the impact, again, what that has on their lives, that's tremendous. And I wish that more and more teams can come to help in a country like Mozambique. There's so many areas, where they can support, where they can help in agriculture, in building, in pastor work, to teach pastors, to teach children, to have children ministry, 1 week, just children program. Imagine that with those 500 children. They will never, ever forget in their lifetime what that experience. And so the impact is huge.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. That's pretty much how we get around.
Buen dia.
So the second structure, we were adding a third room onto an existing house. So we had to tooth out the existing masonry to tie the new stuff in. We were laying concrete blocks still. The old construction was brick. So that was a whole different, the number of courses and everything didn't jive up. It showed us just how strong the concrete coating was that we put on top of the masonry, because it was a pain in the butt to chip in. You're with a hammer and a chisel, you're trying to bust that 30-year-old concrete off the wall and get back into where you can tie the new masonry into the old. And then we realized once we got up towards bearing height that because the difference in material, the old brick versus the new concrete block, the bearing height was different. And then we got thrown another hurdle, and that was the existing roof. The rafters were 2x4s, and the new lumber that we had for rafters were 2x6s. So that's why we had to cut the bird's mouths and the rafters to get them to set a little bit lower so the roof line could all be, the same. We take for granted, heavy material handling here. We can holler for the crane, we can holler for a forklift and hook a strap up and let the machine do the heavy lifting. And there, we had to pick up the concrete lintels that we put over the doors and windows. There was no crane. There wasn't a crane or a forklift within 30 miles of that job site. We had to get 6 or 8 of us to get down and pick those heavy lintels up and manually carry them over and put them into place. And in the process, I remember the second building, one of the SAM Ministry guys, in the process of moving the lintel from the storage area over to the scaffolding, his sandal fell off. He didn't stop. He kept on moving it. We had a job to get done. He moved it over. We all, lifted it up and got it on the scaffolding. He's standing in a pile of mortar with a bare foot to, again, lend a hand and be part of the heavy lifting to get the lintel up. So afterwards, we didn't know how well they understood, concrete burns and the importance of getting that stuff washed off your skin. And again, the communication, you can't just say, hey man, you need to go over and grab a hose and wash that mortar off your foot. You had to kind of show them, and do hand gestures and try to relay the importance of getting it washed off.
Early in the planning process, we were encouraged to think of what small items we could bring to offer the children. And then it occurred to me that, balloons may be very simple, easy to pack, and who knows, maybe it wouldn't go over and maybe it would. So it was probably day 3 or 4, and I had yet to bust out the balloons. And as I was navigating across the campus one day, there were 2 small children, clearly had absolutely nothing to play with. And it kind of touched me in a way. Ran back to my bag, busted out a small bag of balloons and presented it to both of them, and they were pretty leery up front. I don't know that they understood what a balloon was and why this big fat white guy was offering them one to begin with, but they immediately conversed with one another. They came up with a game plan and they each picked a color. I proceeded to blow it up for them, and it was probably 30 seconds later, 2 children turned into 4, 4 to 8, and was consumed with children. It was really a rewarding experience to see just the smiles and the interest in something that probably cost me less than $3. And it really speaks to the idea that, if you just put a little bit of heart and thought into something, you can really make an impact with virtually nothing. I think I officially lost control once they figured out that my hand was going into my pockets to retrieve additional balloons. I'm pretty sure that I had about 15 hands breaching my pockets, and I knew I was in trouble. So I just grabbed the remainder of the bag, threw it out across the masses of children, and pretty quickly thereafter the magic was gone and they were off playing with their balloons and mission accomplished. I got a lot more out of the experience than they ever did, but I think that was really part of our journey. The 8 of us were there in order to give back, but in this true spirit of giving, we got back tenfold.
Our heart for teams that come here is that, they will make a difference. They are making a difference. But that as they leave, that they take a piece of Africa, that they take the heart of what we're doing here and the people that we're working with, and that they, that they share.
really looking forward to going to church in Mozambique. Church is a big part of my life here in America, and so I wanted to experience that, and it did not disappoint. You know, we pulled up in the truck, I mean, it's down a dirt road, and service had started. We were a few minutes late, but got out of the truck, and there's loud music coming from this brick building, and they lead us into the building, and there's seats in the front of the building set up for us. They knew we were coming that day and as their guests. There's music and dancing. You know, I couldn't sit in the chair, so I got up and I went down. I can't dance. I mean, I have no rhythm in my life at all, unfortunately, but no idea what the words were, but it was powerful. And to be able to do that was you know, something that I never thought I would experience. And then it got even better a little bit for me. So in Africa, apparently, at least in Mozambique, they I was told, believe that all white people are ministers or preachers, and I am not. But they expected somebody to deliver the message. That's right up there with life experiences that I will never ever forget.
Good morning, brothers and sisters. What a beautiful day to gather together to worship God. Thank you for allowing me to visit with you and all of us to visit with you this morning. I also want to thank you for all of your hospitality, for allowing us to work in your community for the past week. To become friends with you and work side by side. Thank you.
I also won't forget that Pastor John made me sing in church. So.
Oh, okay. Well, let's go ahead. Let's talk about church. That was church number 2.
Church number 2, yeah.
John did miss church number 1.
He did, yeah. So John gave his sermon, and then they said if we had a choir with us, and it was just the 8 of us, 9 of us, 10 of us up there, however many it was, that we'd be welcome to sing a song. And I, of course, said absolutely not, to myself. And John's like, yeah, we could whip out a verse or 2 of Amazing Grace, which we did.
All right, you ready? All right, get the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I am found. I was blind, but now I see.
And just the blank stares we got back until John politely mentioned, he said, please tell them that's the first time we've ever sang together.
That might be all we've got.
The shook choir, yeah.
Good to get to know you, man.
It's a pleasure.
All the best.
Thanks, Dwight.
No, I know. Lance.
Thank you, sir.
It was good to get to know you too, man. Yeah, Ian. Yeah, it's been good.
Hey,
goodbyes. Yeah, well, it's been good from the Zoom calls to the real call. And
thank you. And
yeah,
until we see
you're
each other
welcome.
again.
Yeah, and the same thing. Please, you have to personally express our appreciation to Shook and to leadership there for their vision. It's a good one. It's a good one.
Yeah, that last day when we were getting ready to leave, I did not expect those trucks to roll up with the workers to hop out that we'd come to become friends with through the week. We worked alongside of them in large part through the week.
Ah, Patrick, come here.
That pulled up and they hopped out and started singing that song. It was very emotional. I just thought, what a send-off. I mean, really. What an absolute send-off. It couldn't have been scripted that way. Hollywood could not have written it any better.
There is so much opportunity to make a difference in our world. And I think, to me, make what Shook is doing really, really powerful. Because it's not about just achieving the project at the end of the day. It's about what it does in the individual who comes here and encounters the developing world, gets a different perspective on how blessed their lives are and how much we have in the developed world, and how little it takes to make such a big difference here. And so that experience profoundly changes an individual. And that says nothing about the impact it makes personally to those that they have come to serve. Mozambicans, as we've told the Shook team, value visitors. When a visitor comes, it says you're important. We always say that we don't work for the first salary, we work for the second salary. And the second salary is the reason why. And the reason is we're making a difference.